Imagine a young king, consumed by an incurable disease, yet still riding his horse and leading his troops under the scorching sun of the Holy Land. This is Baldwin IV of Jerusalem, known as the Leper King, a tragic and heroic figure at the same time. Amidst court intrigues and the constant threat of Muslim armies, led by the formidable Saladin, Baldwin still found the strength to lead his men in open field. In this video, we will relive one of the most surprising and perhaps underestimated moments of his military career, the Battle of Forbelet, which took place in 1182. This was the last time Baldwin personally led a cavalry charge, and the result was an unexpected victory against numerically superior forces. Join us until the end of this episode to discover how tactical intelligence, chivalric courage, and the striking figure of Baldwin transformed the outcome of this battle. Prepare to be moved by the military twilight of a king who defied fate and disease to protect his kingdom. In the 12th century, the Latin kingdom of Jerusalem was a fragile Christian bastion surrounded by rising Muslim powers. Founded after the First Crusade, the kingdom faced constant territorial and religious pressures, especially from Egypt and Syria, unified under the command of Saladin. Internally, disputes between barons and factions divided the court, while externally the Muslim siege intensified. Baldwin, crowned while still a teenager, ruled under the weight of leprosy, but his political intelligence and military bravery kept the kingdom standing. In 1182, this tension would reach a new peak. The year was 1182. The relentless sun of the Palestinian summer scorched the land, and tensions between Christians and Muslims were at their height. Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria, had launched a new offensive against the Crusader states, aiming to test the defenses of the Kingdom of Jerusalem and exploit its internal divisions. His armies moved with speed and brutality, invading territories, burning fields, and devastating villages. Baldwin, though increasingly weakened by leprosy, was not willing to allow such an affront to go unanswered. News of the invasion arrived while he was in Jerusalem, and even against the recommendations of doctors and advisors, the young king ordered the summoning of his troops. He would be, once again, the commander in the field. Forbelet was a strategic location near Montgissard, where 5 years earlier Baldwin had won a glorious victory against Saladin. Now the dry and uneven terrain would serve as the stage for another decisive clash. The Crusaders knew they would face a much larger force. Saladin had brought with him a well-equipped cavalry, mounted archers, and experienced infantry units. Still, Baldwin counted on the discipline of the Templars, Hospitallers, and his own Frankish knights. As they approached the enemy, the Crusaders made a risky decision to attack before Saladin could position himself comfortably. Baldwin, wearing armor adapted to his physical limitations, mounted his horse and took the front line. He could no longer use his hands as before, and his body was visibly weakened, but his spirit of leadership was intact. The clash was fierce. Saladin tried to wear down the Christians with skirmishes and archer attacks, avoiding direct confrontation. But the Crusaders held their formation, and at a critical moment, Baldwin ordered a heavy cavalry charge. The Templars, alongside the king's knights, violently broke through the Muslim flank, creating disorder among the enemies. The king's courage was remarkable. Despite the pain, he remained on the field, encouraging his men and ensuring that discipline was maintained. When Saladin realized he would not be able to break the Christian resistance without suffering heavy losses, he ordered the retreat. The victory at Forbelet did not have the same strategic brilliance as Montgissard, but it had immense symbolic value. It was the last time Baldwin personally led a field battle and emerged victorious. The image of the Leper King, wounded and weakened, yet still capable of inspiring his men and defeating the greatest Muslim commander of his era, echoed throughout the Christian East and West. This battle showed that despite internal divisions and the incurable disease consuming him, Baldwin was still the resilient heart of the kingdom. But time was no longer on his side, and this victory would be one of his last great feats as a warrior and sovereign. Contemporary accounts, especially those written by William of Tyre, his tutor and chronicler, highlight the moral impact of this victory. The king's presence on the field, sick and wrapped in bandages, mounted with difficulty, was in itself a miracle of leadership. His figure reminded the Christians of the Holy Land that the cause of the kingdom was greater than palace intrigues. For a few months, internal unity seemed to strengthen, with the nobility once again recognizing in Baldwin a legitimate sovereign anointed by God. However, the challenges soon returned. Baldwin, at only 21 years of age, could no longer wield a sword. Leprosy was advancing rapidly, affecting his face and limbs. He began to lose vision in one eye and could barely stand for long periods. As much as he still held the respect of his commanders, his ability to govern independently was seriously compromised. The need to organize the succession became urgent. Baldwin had no direct heirs, and the closest name in the line of succession was his nephew, Baldwin of Montferrat, son of his sister Sibylla. But the boy was only a few months old. This led the king to make an unprecedented decision. He named the baby as his co-king, Baldwin V, in a ceremony held in 1183, just 1 year after Le Forbelet. The choice sought to guarantee the continuity of the crown and prevent rival factions from trying to seize power by force. Baldwin IV would still govern as regent, but the instability was evident. The barons began to align themselves around different claimants. Raymond III of Tripoli, Guy of Lusignan, Sibylla's husband, and the interests of the Order of the Templars and the Hospitallers divided the political landscape. Meanwhile, Saladin, despite the defeat at Le Forbelet, had not been significantly weakened. He used the following year to reorganize his forces, intensifying jihad propaganda and securing the support of emirs and cities that still resisted his authority. The battle had been a small tactical defeat, but the strategic war continued to favor the Sultan. Saladin knew that time was on his side, and that the death or incapacity of the Christian king would pave the way for a decisive advance. Baldwin, for his part, remained lucid and determined. He continued to participate in council meetings despite the pain and limitations. Even though his mobility was reduced, he sent emissaries, negotiated alliances, and resisted pressures to abdicate. His figure became a kind of symbol of redemptive suffering, a living martyr who upheld, through personal sacrifice, the Crusader ideal. Le Forbelet, thus, was not just a battle won. It was a cry of resistance, a reminder that even in the worst circumstances, faith, honor, and courage could keep a kingdom standing. But it was also the beginning of the end. With declining health and an increasingly uncertain political future, Baldwin was heading toward his final days, no longer as the warrior of the battlefield, but as the sovereign fighting to ensure his legacy would not be scattered by the desert wind. If you were moved by this story, leave your like, share it with friends who are interested in medieval history, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Each episode like this is a window to the past, and together we can keep alive the memories of figures like Baldwin IV, the Leper King, who defied disease, despair, and fate itself.